last time we spoke about mapping the ecosystem right and understanding those 3 to 5 areas where you have a forte, where you have a leverage, and which are so also relevant geography, government, and ecosystem wise for you to build your business and get the right kind of lift under your wings from day one. Now we'll take our discussion further to understand how do you go about debriefing that idea of yours amongst those 3 to 5 ideas to understand which problem statement you're going to solve and which one will reap you the most benefits as a business. As a business, where do you reap maximum benefits? That's what we are going to target. What does that take into account? That takes into account actually figuring out what is the model that you are going to operate in. When I say model of operation, now that comes into understanding what are the different actors, whom are you creating the product for, whose problem are you solving, and how much will they pay you for solving that problem, and ensuring that you create your revenue stream by solving the problem, and your revenue or your charges cover your cost and also the cost of the value that you have created, and still a little bit of margin so that you have a profit which can be reinvested back into the business. So this is what we refer to usually as a business model. So business model is when you put together a structure such that you're solving a valuable problem or a really pertinent, persistent problem, or creating some convenience that is not existing today in a manner that the people whom you're creating the convenience for, or the target segment, it may be pets whom you're creating convenience for, so not necessarily people only, but the target audience for whom you're creating the convenience from, acknowledge it and are ready to pay up for it enough that it covers your cost, it covers the cost of your time and effort to create the value that you have brought in, and also earns you a little more above it. So that is when you have a business model in place. And then you can again keep churning the cycle again and again to, once you establish the initial one, you can keep churning the cycle again and again to come up with a more scaled up business. And that's where the complexity of having a team, having different management folks at the top, and having different senior leadership, advisory, and everything comes into picture. But when you start, the first thing that you have is how is this entire business going to work? Sometimes we work in environments where the business models are already set, but sometimes you need to build it right. And even if you're working in an environment where models are already set, you might want to come up with a little tweaked and optimized model, because that is what will create value for you. If your cost gets covered and the value creation takes lesser time for you, then you're going to make money, because the customer's willingness to pay in a standardized market or a commoditized market is already fixed. So your value will come when you're able to reduce the cost and have a greater margin for yourself. So how does one go about doing this? Start by taking a little tacky example right now, but it's a very relevant problem that we all need to think about. We often think of the apps of the world and solving the problem of bringing people together and coordinating, but we are soon getting above that stage. What will matter is how things are on the ground. And over there, one important thing that comes up is waste management. Whether we talk of residential waste, commercial waste, or we talk of the industrial waste management. And residential waste management is the garbage collection to garbage processing that happens. We all have our garbage collected from home almost every day of the week. How does that process go about? It is a human intensive process, but to what extent, and understanding where the right tweaks can be, and where there can be different ideas of either making the life of those who are involved in garbage collection and garbage processing safer, because remember, they are dealing with chemicals that we don't want to touch even, that make us feel sick, even if we just see them or touch them. So that definitely it has an impact on them health-wise. How do you make it a little more safer environment for them? Or someone who after the garbage collection actually helps process it, or when we have those floods that happen in the cities of India because our drainage systems are overloaded. Where and what needs to be changed so that the lives of people involved in different parts of the ecosystem, different parts of the value chain creation can be made much better. So that is where the business modeling over here will happen. Say for instance, if I am involved in, say, industrial waste like management. So I talk to different industries, understand what is the standard that they are trying to comply with as per the government, or are they trying to do even better than the compliance standards? Are they looking at carbon credits, or what is the economy and economics that they are operating by? What are the concessions that they are getting from the government? What are the pain points today in getting it done? And how much is it costing them? And what can I do by coming in as a player who has expertise in waste management and enabling the different elements to come together in a manner that not only do I process the waste right, but I create something that is harmless, beautiful, and saleable back into the world. So that is what I'm talking about. What I did in this one statement is I tried solving the waste management problem for the industrial players by processing the industrial effluents and the industrial waste. I'm also trying to create a second revenue stream for myself by building products out of the output, the harmless outputs that are created, which might have a different target segment amongst the end customers or maybe even other business players. So that is something to tap into. So I'm creating a business model here where there's an initial revenue stream and there is a secondary revenue stream that can develop. But before knowing whether this idea is going to work, what I really need to do is I really need to try it out. How do I try it out? It's a huge idea which will take a huge amount of investment, lakhs and lakhs, and maybe sometimes crores of rupees for me to actually process the industrial effluents and come up with something and charge them some amount for doing it right by them and by their standards, and then building out a product out of it. I don't do everything. I figure out what my minimum viable product is. So once you have a business model and you know what problem you're solving and how you're going about solving it, you need to boil down to your minimum viable product or minimum viable service, maybe in this case. So in this case, what is my minimum viable service? That I ensure that I do the waste processing at least as per the standards of the environmental standards that are prescribed either internationally or by the board that most of the companies in the particular region or country that I'm operating in abide to. That's the minimum viable product. Or if I have a target segment and they are proactive in not only abiding by what the company standards or the global standards are, but they actually set new standards, then that is what I need to aspire for. So based on my target segment, what is the minimum that I need to do so that I have their attention and I have their affinity to get me onboarded as the minimum viable service provider, as the service provider or as their product builder. That's what I need to do. So in this case, I need to understand if I can have a small sample of the industrial effluent that I intend to process and what is the processing that takes place for it in the smallest scale possible. Just as we have the map, maybe 2 cms in it actually denotes 2000 kilometers on the ground. On similar lines, what is the bare minimum industrial effluent that I can take in a lab and process it in a manner that I understand how much cost it takes me to process that much of industrial waste, and what is the output? How can I test it that it is harmless without impacting lives around me, and safely test it out, and then complete the cycle, understand the cost of sourcing the waste, cost of processing the waste, cost of building this entire model or the sweat cost that goes into it, cost of testing the output for its harmlessness before releasing it out. That is my minimum viable product, even in this complex business model where I took 2 revenue streams. So I'd purposely taken 2 revenue streams, one primary and one secondary, because I wanted the output of primary to make you understand that the output of primary is what makes it for your minimum viable product cut. After you have done this, after you've stabilized and you know that you can scale up your minimum viable product to a pilot at least, you might go ahead and add your secondary product. In this case, the secondary product is, say, maybe out of the industrial waste, there are plastics in it or there is glass in it, and I'm able to process it to make a beautiful doll out of it. which has a big market, maybe a glass doll, miniature glass dolls, which have a huge market, niche market, and I'm actually able to cater to that. Or maybe the glass pieces that I separate from the plastic pieces are actually a source for some other B2B player to do their job right. So those can also be my revenue sources depending on how and where I want to be. I hope this video makes sense to you. I will keep talking to you more. In the next session, we'll go deeper into the different kinds of business models, the standard business models that exist today when we look across industries also, and what do you really need to do when you're looking at the business model. There are different approaches for different entrepreneurs, for different founders and business people. There's no one rule applies to all, that this is how you go by it. No, like I do it very intuitively, and then I retrofit the business model into what really works in the current market. But there are people who first see which business model fits in better and go ahead and experiment it and move ahead from there. So we will delve deeper into what are the different business models that we can leverage on a standard, or what are the business models that need to strike us when we think of business modeling, and how to do it right so that we get to the target customer segment at the earliest, in the least possible time, and understand their pulse, if we are targeting the right customer or there is someone else out there for us. I hope this made sense to you. I will see you on the other side. Till then, bye. Take care.